I was definitely a little chilled up now. Whew. Put on the goggles, and I've been swimming around in the pool right back here for about an hour. The water's definitely gotten a little cooler since a couple weeks back. And the one salmon that I spied over there I mentioned earlier had a whole pile of crayfish all around it. The salmon was void of crayfish, like something went and cleaned them all up. So I opted out to leave the GoPro on the steel plate I stuck it to in the current in the river just over on this side. I noticed a couple dark shadows in there, so I haven't checked it out. Hopefully get some real cool videos of salmon or whatever on there. And another GoPro on the end of a stick. I just spent a while swimming around in there with the fish. I think there's a bunch of juvenile and various age steelhead in there, which is exciting for me. And I left that stick and the GoPro right up in the current in below the rapids. And it should look pretty cool. There's a pile of fish swimming around there, but they didn't like me at all. So I backed away and left it in there, and then I went back in and got it. Now I am frozen. So I have to take off for a few days, so I'm going to get a few videos made in the man cave, which is coming right along. The walls started going up for the accommodations going in there. The boards, the stained floorboards are all down, about 99% of them for the whole platform, and the wall boards just got delivered today, and they got to get stained and put on. So things are happening. It's pretty exciting. But I have to stop myself so I can tend to other things as well. Anyway, before I start babbling too much, let's get into her. And I don't know, I haven't checked my inbox, but remember the last video I put a message out to the law enforcement officers who watch our channel avidly. I know it's going to be it would be a little too uncomfortable for you to answer our questions online, but if you do feel compelled, do a fake email, Gmail something, whatever, and email me privately and let me know what you guys talk about amongst yourselves when it comes to actual tyranny in the world and possible derelict, opportunistic, evil, motivated Western politicians when it comes down to it. The question was, when do you draw the line? When do you put the cuffs on those people instead of continue to strip the people of their rights? Easy question to answer. It's not conflicting. It's not conflict. It's not aggro. It's just an honest question from the people, by the people, to the law. Now, what do we got? I know the current's not too loud right here. I can tell, even though my ears ring from being able to have my head blown off twice now. Now, what do we got? All right, title Sabe. Here we go. Hello, Steve. Ever since I found your channel, I started following you to learn more about hunting in the beginning. When you brought up Bigfoot/Sasquatch, I was hooked. I'm 44 years old and in Anishinaabe from southern Manitoba. We have activity here, always have. I'm not claiming to have any answers, but all the physical evidence is there. Audio, tracks, tree breaks. Nothing solid that would convince you or any settlers. No offense, Steve, but you won't find him unless you open your mind to him. He's a protector, even from the bad ones. There are bad ones. They're the ones who aren't as curious about us as the friendly one. They are both spiritual beings and can cross into our physical realm. The disoriented feeling is because of the close proximity to them, and is purely a defense tactic. Yes, I believe the government, or whoever the ruling elite are, they are up to something, and I hope to convey that message to these people. Since the Vikings first came, we've always had a relationship with the Sabe. My ancestors have passed on the knowledge and stories, generation to generation, and the world we live in now, of course, it's hard to accept these teachings. We're all corrupted by this system of the rat race, and it's time to return to the old ways. I respect your efforts. Please try to make communication without any expectations of getting it on video, and I bet you'll get your answer. Thank you for your hunting tips, and stay safe and keep us posted. Share as you will, because I believe that knowledge is power. We have to take care of the land and people who truly care about us, and the protectors who have always been nearby, whether we knew it or not. Jamie Alexander, Ojibwe, Treaty 1. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. And just so anybody else who might be curious, I'm not trying to get these guys on video. I'm not trying to seek them out. I know they're there. I respect their space, and I only ask them to respect mine. I do understand that I have a feeling for myself that I was to go sit in the deep, thick timber where I know these beings are, just sit there, no weapons, and offer up possible friendly intentions. I don't know. I have a feeling that would probably bring some reaction. I've thought about it a couple times in the past. I'm not really big on it. I might possibly do it eventually. I've been thinking about it on my own. I haven't been pushed that way by anybody. I don't get pushed by anybody anyway. What I do is I follow my sixth sense. I follow my intuition, and it leads me the correct direction. In the past little while, I have been thinking about possibly doing that. So is that my intuition pushing me in that direction? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I might. We'll see. Somebody else will, I'm sure, and other people are right now, guaranteed. But thanks for that email, man. If you want to email again, send it away, all right? All right, here we go. Mark this one as man, chilly. That water's getting a little cold. No title. Hey, man, I've been watching the channels for a while now. I keep hearing comparisons of you to David Pilatus. They are very high compliments, and I think they are completely deserved. He refers a lot to a village of like-minded people. He is right, so are you. You have my respect and gratitude. Thank you very much, and that respect is right back at you and everyone else, alright? Thank you for the kind, supportive words. I've been trying to tell people about the forest people for years, and I've given up doing it because the skepticism and derision has never stopped, even from my own 5 kids and wife. My knowledge goes back to winter '74 January. I lived in northern Maryland, near the PA border. I was 18 and my wife was then 17. She belonged to our school's ecology club, which was then something brand new. First Earth Day, 1973. The club was going on a canoe trip in PA on a small river called Muddy Creek. She couldn't go due to other things at home. The club and the teacher went on the trip for the weekend, but came home a day early. They were visibly in shock and barely talking, including the teacher. They managed to tell us that they had been canoeing downstream when they heard roaring from the bank. When they looked up, they saw a huge hairy man who began throwing boulders and logs at them, almost swamping the canoes. They paddled like hell and eventually got out of range, and hysterical, they came home. All of them gave the same story, and one girl, a friend of ours, had started the weekend with brown hair, but it ended with gray hair. It was not dyed. I knew her. I saw it. At the time, the British Museum had a standing offer of £1 million sterling for the body of a Sasquatch. I was poor from a broken home and saw dollar signs in my head, so I loaded my 35 cal Marlin with 180 Winchester silver tips and headed north to the river. I hiked about a mile in the woods in the rocky foothills of the Appalachians and began looking for sign along the riverbed and sandbars. It was about 15 Fahrenheit that day, and the sand was frozen hard. Almost right away, I found a bare footprint, impressed into the frozen sand about 2 inches. It was 18 inches long and about 5 to 6 inches wide, with 5 toes, and it looked basically just like ours. I hiked up the rocks on the hillside with my head on a swivel and one in the chamber with the hammer back and the safety on. I found a rock to perch on with my back to the rock wall and settled down to wait for my money to arrive. A little bit of a breeze in my neck. I hope it's not affecting the microphone on the camera. After a few minutes, the feeling that something was watching me got pretty strong, but I disregarded it, thinking I was just paranoid. I sat there freezing for hours, but the feeling never stopped. By late afternoon, it dawned on me that I had not heard any wood sounds all effing day. Pretty dull, huh? No birds, no squirrel chatter, nothing but the water down below. I finally said, "Eff it," hiked back to my truck and drove home. Promised myself there would be other days. The farther I got from the hillside, the better I felt. I went back several times afterward, but never felt that same weird feeling again there. Hindsight is 20/20. Age brings maybe a bit of common sense. I gave up on the notion before summer and never went back. Over the years, I've tried to tell different people about it, and without exception, everyone has told me that I'm full of shit. Ridicule heaped on insults through the years pretty much shut me up. I've been with my wife 48 years, since high school. I hitched in the Navy and 30 years as a police officer, and I still won't bring it up because it just isn't worth it. I'm 66, my kids go from 42 down to 28, and they still think I'm a crackpot. My word has sent people to prison. My memory and testimony has never lost one case in court, but I'm still a damn crackpot if I bring this up. I'm glad you're doing this. It's a pretty great thing to validate us poor schmoes who have seen what we have and know what is true. Thank you, and please keep it going. Maybe there'll be daylight before the powers that manage to kill us all. Maybe. Let's hope so. Thank you for sending that in, man. Appreciate it. And if it gives you any kind of understanding, just so you know, the people that I have found that laughed the most and ridiculed the most, when I showed them a couple photographs in the past and seen the reactions, it was then instantly that I realized that the topic actually scared the living crap out of them. And that's what's going on. So I would imagine your family, they don't think you're a crackpot. They just do not want to face that reality. They don't want anything to do with it. They don't want to hear about it. And the best way to make it go away is laugh at it, pretend it's not happening. Thousands of people are doing that. It's what it is. That's fine. That's fine, especially on this channel, because this channel is about the people exactly like you who just wrote in. Have seen something, have been laughed at for years. It's not fair. Military/scientific background. Steve sent yesterday only a list of experiences due to lengthy content. Otherwise, however, we'll provide details if you wish in future contact. They are varied and are of high strangeness, particularly because many occurred in metropolitan setting. I'm sure you're overwhelmed with the volume of emails, but also have much research and confirmation of the more of the Twilight Zone type. Most of the naysayers would say I'm completely paranoid or ready for conservatorship. I don't give a flying F. Not very nice language for a 76-year-old semi-retired teacher. But I'm sick of being nice, silent, or labeled. Matter than a cat on fire. From phone hacks, drones, and 3 years of black helicopter tailgaters. Hope you find my previous notes. Blessings to you and yours, my virtual friend. I also appreciate your candor, your courage, and your personal integrity, Susan B. Okay, Susan, this one's new to me. I will, when I get back, I will hopefully remember to do a search in the inbox for your name and see what you've sent previous, and I'll get right to it, alright? Apologize if it hasn't been shared yet. If you saw my inbox, you'd understand. Thanks for writing that in, Susan. My experience in Oregon. My experience in Oregon. Hello, Steve. My boyfriend has been watching your hunting channel on YouTube for years, as he has been a blacktail hunter since he was a kid. He had me listen to a video of you telling a savage story about 6 months ago, and I've been hooked ever since. I woke up an hour before I normally do just to listen to your videos and drink my coffee. I must say it's a great way to start my day. I love the no bullshit attitude you have, and I feel the world needs a lot more people like you in it. Thank you for the kind words. Appreciate that. It seems to me that a lot of these stories are so similar, almost identical with one another, as people have seen these beings all around the world, had the same experiences and never met. It proves the government is hiding a lot more than we know from us, and that's scary. I didn't really understand my experience until after hearing one of your videos about rocks being thrown in the water. Then it hit me. I've had two experiences in the same place within a couple of weeks of each other, and never actually thought about it until now. About 25 miles northwest of a town called Klamath Falls, located in the beautiful state of Oregon, in Odessa Campground. I lived in Klamath for most of my life and used to go there frequently as a teenager. It's free to camp, and there's 6 different campsites along the one-lane dirt road that loops around. So if you had a camp trailer or were pulling a boat, it made it easier to get in and out. As I said, I'd been there a handful of times with friends before my first encounter and never felt bothered or unwanted. Not a lot of people stayed overnight there, which I thought was awesome because who wants neighbors when you're trying to enjoy your time outdoors, away from people? I can't remember the exact date, but I think it was mid-July 2007. 2 of my girlfriends, 1 of the boyfriends, my ex and I went for a one-night camping trip. We like to stay in the spot that's at the bottom of the loop, about 20 to 30 yards from a creek that runs off the upper Klamath Lake. There was what looked like a pathway at the back of the circular campsite into the wooded area that surrounded it. The trees were bent over the walkway at about 7 feet, which I thought maybe the trees just grew like that. I didn't know any better. You could tell that the people before us had used it as the bathroom area since there's only one toilet for the whole campground. We all decided to walk down the path just to see how far it went. After about 2 minutes in, I got this strange feeling that we had to go back now. So I told them we should start setting up camp before it gets dark, which they agreed. When you're all 15 and camping with your friends, you might bring some alcohol to amp up the fun. I know, typical teenagers. But later that night, after we had a few beers and was listening to music, we heard some rustling to the right of us in the tall trees and grass that surrounded the campsite. Thinking it's just a rabbit or a skunk or some other small creature making his way through, we ignored it. A few minutes later, the rustling happened again, this time even closer. None of us were brave enough to go find out what was making the noise, so we all started yelling and stomping our feet to hope to scare it away. Must have worked, because nothing else happened after that. Fast forward a couple weeks and it's time for another camping trip. This time, it was just my ex and I. We set up in the same spot and tried some fishing with no luck. It was getting late, so we decided to eat dinner and go to bed. He told me he wanted to try and catch some catfish before he went to sleep. He would only be gone for about 20 minutes. I was tired, so I told him to go ahead. I was going to hit the hay. He put the fire out, grabbed his gear, and walked the 30 yards to the water's edge while I climbed into the tent. Not even 10 minutes of laying down and almost asleep, I heard a huge splash. It sounded like a boulder hit the water, followed by a scream slash yell slash roar that I can't even describe other than ear-piercing and definitely not human. I've never been that scared in my entire life. Immediately my ex came running up yelling, "We gotta get the F out of here now!" I jumped up, grabbed the keys and a blanket, jumped into my car and we sped away. I asked him what it was and he said it sounded like someone was on the other side of the creek, 50 yards or less from one side to the other. Directly in front of him, threw a giant rock into the water and screamed. Thinking it was someone trying to scare us, we drove back to Plymouth to see a couple of his friends would go back out with us to get our tent and belongings, but none of them would. We didn't want to leave our stuff there overnight, so him and I drove back to the campground, decided to sleep in my car at the beginning of the campground, where the signs that explain the rules and stuff are, and wait until morning to retrieve our belongings. We were woken by an OSP officer tapping on my window with his flashlight at 5 a.m. When I started to explain why we were parked and sleeping in the car, he interrupted, and these were his exact words. "There's been a lot of reports of suspicious activity going on out here, and it's best if you leave now. Don't come around here for a while." Then he got in his car and drove away. I was stunned. Suspicious activity? Are there a bunch of teenagers out here in the woods running amok and messing with people? He never said anything more than that. When we got back to where the tent was, nothing had been taken or destroyed. The only thing that I noticed was the zipper on the tent wasn't closed all the way, open about 5 inches, when I know for a fact I zipped it closed. Another thing, there were no other people there that night and there was no way to get across the creek without having to swim or use a small inflatable boat. You can Google map it and see what I'm talking about. I haven't been back there since and have no urge to go back again. My 2 girlfriends had went there a few nights after us with their boyfriends to camp, and when they woke up, the ground around their cars and tents had fresh rose petals along with sticks placed in strange positions. They won't go back either. Whatever is there, want us to know is there and to stay away. I've also had what I believe to be another experience at a place called Topsy. It's about 29 miles southwest of Plymouth, where people go fish, ride dirt bikes, camp, and hunt, etc. My same ex and I were with a few of his friends near this big rock that everyone likes to jump off and into the water. It's about 11 p.m. and from across the river we hear this scream. It lasts about 4 seconds, then complete silence, followed by one last scream slash whoa for about 8 seconds. My ex tried to say it was a mountain lion, but that was no kitty cat. It sounded massive. We all shrugged it off and went to bed a few hours later. Nothing else happened that night, but I'll never forget that sound either. This took place before the first 2 experiences I was talking about, and the screams were different from each other. I still go in the woods every chance I get, and I like to hunt and fish during the seasons, but I'm always aware of my surroundings, especially sounds, and that infamous gut feeling, because you're never alone in the woods. Thank you for sharing my experience with the people, and I hope this helps someone the way it did for me. Take care, be safe, and keep those stories coming. Sincerely, M.E., a fellow believer, but I'll share that to a fellow knower. How's that sound? I'm not a big fan of the word believer myself. But thanks for that share. I'm sure there's going to be a pile of people that know the exact place you're talking about, and the amount of people here today, there's a pretty good chance somebody else has had something similar happen there as well, or they've seen something, right? And you're not going to find out until you crack it open like you just did. Break the seal and let her flow. Thanks again. This one is red. Hello, Steve. Sasquatch information. Alright. Autocorrect is a bitch and half for typing these days. Yes, it is. For security purposes, I'd simply like to go by the alias of Axi. I currently live in the southwestern corner of Georgia, Woodlands, in a small town. My life has been chaotic with constant restructuring of reality and understanding, giving rise to new concepts and lessons learned every day of every week, now given our world's current situation. As of now, I've been involved in multiple things, concepts that have been a part of my life since I was a very young age. I empathize with many people just now waking up to the reality of our world and the beings which exist outside the peripheral of many. It's a hard lesson for many to realize, not in to dramatize things, but I firmly believe that if anyone to peer into the last 13 years of my life, they would likely be mentally scarred from the tragedies I've had access to. However, it's not a letter about my life story, albeit would be an interesting one to tell given everything I've experienced and been through. I'm a former abductee victim, if that's one thing to spark your interest. Wow. However, this is my one tale to tell of my only experience with what I believe to be my connection with the Sasquatch. Bear in mind, it is my fundamental belief that is the reality of this experience, but I don't have solid proof, only the research to back up my claims. I feel it is a responsibility to make such a statement as making a claim should come with such responsibility of oneself. When I was 13 years old, I was at a church camp in Georgia Woods. It was roughly 9 to 10 p.m. at night. I remember our church camp's guide was getting us all ready to settle in and go to sleep to staff the next morning up and early around 7 a.m. I can remember it very clearly. I watched our guide go outside to the next building over and just happened to see a few kids standing next to the window. I asked what was going on. And one has mentioned there was a person standing outside. We could not see the individual, only their shadow being cast by a dimly lit porch light outside. They looked very large and bulky. Strangely enough, they never moved. They were eerily still. At first we began to think it wasn't a person at all, and over a span of perhaps 20 minutes, we sat there continually monitoring the invisible shadow. Eventually, the others seemed to get bored, and I followed suit. We were young, and after all, and as with many youth, you might know today their attention span can get pretty short. Anyway, a short while later, our guide had returned from the other camp house, and that's when it hit me. So much so that I felt I was sick, but I felt fine from the overall remembrance of how my body was. This guttural, horrible smell. I will never in my life forget that smell. It was like a hairy animal had jumped into a sewage drain and got soaked in feces for an hour. But that's not the strange part. It was only me. I ran to my guide, scared for myself because I felt like I was going insane. But he just looked at me and said there was nothing. No one smelled but me. I couldn't understand it. It was as if I was the only one who knew. I went to bed that night frightened and sickened from the smell. When I woke up the next morning, I checked the area outside where the figure had been. There was no obstruction of any kind that would have made that shadow. And I knew right then that something was wrong. I'm now 33 years old, and ever since then this phenomenon has happened to me 3 more times since that first encounter. I know not of what it is, but as I've grown older, I learned of the Sabe or Sasquatch, and I became curious as to whether in some way I perhaps became in tune with it somehow. I don't know if it maybe masked its presence so much that even its smell was gone to everyone but me, which sounds amazing to me, but also perhaps terrifying to others. I hope you might have learned something from this experience. Please keep doing what you're doing and telling the expectanks, it says others. Please keep doing what you do and telling the experiences of others. I hope you might have learned something new from this experience. Please keep doing what you do and telling the experiences of others. You're doing more than you know. Axi. Alright. That's interesting. That's the first time I think that I've heard of someone experiencing the scent and nobody else. That's very odd. Possibly alarming. And that shoots me right back to last fall when my buddy was hearing the tree getting absolutely wailed on where and coming from where I was, alone, with no wind, retrieving the quad. How do you explain that? I don't know. Do I make it clear every time I go in the woods and go hunting? Don't scare the shit out of me. Leave me alone. I want nothing to do with you. Excuse me. Yes, I do. Maybe that's got something to do with it. Who knows? Somebody's gonna know. Somebody's gonna have that same experience. I'm sure of it. Thanks for sending that in. Here comes another one. You know, it's funny, sometimes some people write their stories in the title section of their email. Or they write a big chunk before they catch on. And that's what we got right here. So what do we got? Hey Steve, thanks for what you're doing on your channel. I'm sharing an experience my friend and his dad had when they were fishing a few years ago. I'm from Winkler, Manitoba. My friend and his dad were fishing one day, and after a couple hours, they all of a sudden heard knocking on a tree. Someone was knocking on a tree with a rock. So he picked up a rock and knocked on the tree, and they kept going back and forth. What we all believe is a Sasquatch would always copy the number of knocks. Then he threw a rock in the water, and then he saw a rock come out of the bush on the other side of the river and hit the water, and that's when they started to feel really uneasy. That's when he stood up and said, I'm going to my truck to get a rifle. If you don't come out and show yourself, whatever you are, I'm going to start firing into the bush. And that's when it turned and ran. And he said it sounded like a huge animal plowing through the bush. And you could hear large trees being broken as it ran. And he used to say, get everyone fishing at that spot again. In one of your videos, you told a story about someone that was in the forest, and they all of a sudden felt that feeling of dread, and everything in the forest was quiet. I remember having that same experience a couple times when I was a teenager. I grew up in the country, and I always loved spending time in the forest hunting. I remember feeling that way a few times, like I just had to get out of there. And I usually never feel that way in the forest. And that's where it ends. Alright, thanks for that share. That was Winkler, Manitoba. Or anybody from Winkler, Manitoba or Manitoba that's watching right now, alright? We're definitely covering the map, aren't we? I wonder if anybody's actually keeping track of all these names of places being mentioned on this channel. I'm not, just so you know. I don't write anything down. I got all these saved, but I'm definitely not mapping out anything because I don't believe in mapping where these beings are on the planet. That's just me. I am quite certain they go wherever they want when they want. Period. There's no set routes or borders for them. Okay, one more. I'm frozen. Believe it or not. Whew, this looks like a longer one, but I'm in. I'm going to do it. Especially because the title says Great Story. My name is Chris Eichlin, and you can use it. I'll keep some info out to be on the safe side. I've watched your videos since I came across them, and have been guided and I've been glued to all the great stories you get to tell. Keep up the great work. I was born in the Yukon and grew up in the Haines Junction area. You've been up there on a sheep hunt, you said in a video. Probably with the good ones. Lance has passed on, but I'm sure you know that. Yeah, actually, you know what? Haines Junction, I've been there numerous times. I've run around in the Takamachini a handful of times over the years. So that's how I'm familiar with that area. I've never guided there. I've definitely never gone on a guided hunt, but I have hunted for myself in the area and helped people, accompanied to film and stuff. Very familiar with Haines Junction. Haines. Where did I go? I grew up in the bush. I grew up bushwise. You can say as I am a native person and have learned a lot from my dad and family. I grew up with stories from the elders about the Bushmen and was always on the lookout for them. My first account was a late evening, summer in 1998, 4x4ing an area that in the summer brings salmon to the rivers. This was an area that the elders say they had to move a village upstream in the past because they were being bothered too much from the Bushmen. The area did not see a pickup much, and we ended up getting the truck stuck, could not get out. Even broke the winch. This area is spooky any day, as there are bears everywhere. We had a gun, but I was still unsure, as I felt I was being watched. So I took the battery out of the truck and tied rope around it so we could carry it on our shoulders. I taped the wires from the spotlight so it could turn on when we needed, as we had about a 7-kilometer walk out, and it was pitch black. Not too far on our trip out, I could hear something big paralleling us in the bush, so I'd stop dead, and we'd only hear one more step from it and then silence. I did this numerous times and turned the spotlight on from time to time and looked around. We could not see anything, but the one extra step it would take when we tricked it scared me because it proves intelligence. I still wonder if I did not have a light with us, what may have happened. Also from the same area, same time in the past, a prospector was staying in a shack somewhere back there. He was being tormented by them hitting the shack, taking turns running up to the door and hitting it. I had to move the camera because some thermals were ripping up the creek, and I just know they were probably slapping on the camera pretty good on that microphone. He was being tormented by them hitting the shack, taking turns running up to the door and hitting it. He was so scared he wired a shotgun up. Pointing down in front of the door from above so he could pull the trigger with a rope. One came up to the door and he pulled the trigger, hitting one. They screamed around, and he thinks he killed one. In the morning he walked out to find they carried the dead one away, and he walked out of there for good, never to return, but not before handing in a statement about his ordeal. Wow. Second time is 2007. I'm now working in Alberta around the Fox Lake area in our small camp on the ANC road. I would go quadding with a buddy into the late evening sometimes. There was an old cut line that would go down to the river that we used a couple of times. There's a section of old growth trees, very big, that had older logging blocks around it. What was spooky about it was that the area stank like a dead animal. You know, like a bear kill. The hair on my neck would stand up when I had to go through it. Even my buddy said the same thing. I think once even a small rock may have hit my helmet. One night I woke up and then tried to flip over on my stomach when my eye caught something looking down at me. I froze and I could not move at all. Nothing prepares you for that. It was complete fear I felt. It felt like 5 minutes, but it's probably shorter. It was one of them. He must have been 9 feet tall. It just looked at me, then slowly moved its head from the window. My room was the last one on the end, and it could have just got me if it wanted to. This screwed me up for some time and still brings tears to my eyes thinking of it. After that, I now close every window curtain or blind at dusk because I think they like to look in more than people know. Third time is 2017. I'm again working in Fox Creek, but I have my fifth wheel RV with me. So I set up in the bush so I don't have to pay the overpriced campground costs. I find a good area on top of a hill with a 10-foot high fence around an old sump area. The fence is open in a couple of places, and there are a lot of animal bones throughout the area with traces of meat still on it. But I think there's a wolf den nearby, so I still sit up there. One day after work, I could hear something walking close to the trailer. It's fall time, so there's lots of noise from the leaves. I think it's a deer, but look around hard and can't see anything. My eyesight is good, but it bothers me enough that I get a rifle out and then take a shot where the noise is coming from. Then nothing, no noise. It's like some people say, they can cloak themselves. That night I was woken up from my trailer being shaken. My blinds all closed though. I sleep with the gun next to me, but all I feel is complete fear. All I do is press the lock function on my truck and honk the horn and then start it up. The next day there's a strong smell coming from the ground in front of the trailer. I think it took a piss there, and it smelled for a few days after. After thinking about it, I still think it was a juvenile playing around with me. Maybe mad, my blinds are all closed. These beings are very real. I have other friends that have seen them too. I've also seen UFOs, lights in the sky, and even had a craft fly over my head at low speed without a light on and without any noise, 20 feet above my head, and in Alberta too. I have friends in the Yukon that have seen a huge mothership, and you can say that flew over a few towns and was covered by different news media. I don't trust the government, as everything I've seen they still will not acknowledge. I'm in my 40s now, I have a hard time to overnight in the bush because I'm afraid of these beings. We don't know enough about them. All I know is what the elders say, and that is to give them the space and go the other direction. Keep up the great work, Steve. It feels good to get this off my chest. Thanks, Chris. Chris, I thank you for sharing that here with everybody through me, man. Absolutely appreciate it. The club of no return sucks for many people, doesn't it? It frustrates me. I don't know how many times I wish I didn't know about this shit, so I could just go bounce around in the forest all carefree, right? Carefree. Carefree, bouncing around the bush, running around in the dark, not worrying about a thing. Then you have to go and see one of these damn things, and then you know. And then that's all she wrote. You're now in the club of no return. There's nothing you can do about it. So many people. So many people. Tens of thousands of people. Unbelievable. Anyways, yeah, there's been a pile of people, not a pile, quite a few people have emailed in from south of Whitehorse, Carcross. Where else? Haines Junction, Haines, Alaska. A lot of sightings down there, for sure. And actually, as a side note, right across from Goodwin's main outfit camp, there's that trailhead there that goes back in west through the Willow. We were back there, what, 2 years ago, I think, sheep hunting with a friend. And something was shook the cabin. It was exactly just after 9 p.m. Shook the cabin. I grabbed the rifle, went outside, nothing's there. We chalked it up as a possible earthquake. But then we left, went farther in the bush for a couple days, came back to that same cabin. Just after 9 p.m. the sucker shook again. Probably wasn't an earthquake. And I grabbed the gun again and I was getting ready for whatever it was to come through the door, but it never came through. I don't know. Go figure. But anyway, I gotta get back. I'm frozen. And hopefully if I got any cool stuff on these underwater cameras, maybe I'll show a few clips of the tail end here, okay, guys? So be safe out there. Keep looking people square in the eye. Speaking open honesty. And if you got something you want to get off your chest, you can email it to sharemystory@howtohunt.com or tellmystory@howtohunt.com. Try not to do both, okay? Because when I see you guys using both, it just makes me groan. It's like, oh God. It gobbles up space and it helps annihilate the chances of other people getting their emails in too, okay? If you got it at once, it didn't. And it'll get got to. It will.